Well, hello, you wonderful humans, and welcome back to Elden Ring. Today we had a pretty massive 1.03 update bringing a bunch of nerfs and some really important buffs, and things are actually working as intended in many different instances now. Now, the first thing we're going to get into today are the things that have been added to the game. Now, nothing too crazy here, but on the map, we do now have NPC icons and names. We won't lose track of them. We also have an added NPC called the Jer Barn, and some new quest phases have been added for the following NPCs: Dialos, Nephililu, Kenneth Hythe, and the Gatekeeper Gostic. I'm sure I mispronounced quite a few of those. Also added some summonable NPCs in multiple situations, and increased the number of patterns of objects players can imitate when using Mimic's Veil. So if you were sick of being a tree, a box, or a statue, now you can be maybe some other things. Added night background music for some open field areas. Now, nothing too crazy here, but there has been a ton of bug fixes and nerfs across the board, and also some key buffs. Now, on the bug fixing side, we've got a bug that prevented summoned NPCs from taking damage in some boss battles is now fixed, so if you're cheesing bosses that way, you might not be able to anymore. Also, they've fixed a bug that sometimes prevented the player from obtaining items after boss battle. I actually experienced that myself. Not fun. They've also fixed a bug that causes dialogue to be skipped when talking to NPCs using custom key configurations, and also a bug that caused players to freeze when riding. I've experienced that quite a few times, and it's killed me a number of them as well. They also fixed a bug that causes arcane to scale incorrectly for some weapons. Now, this is an incredibly important one, because arcane weapons, specifically the Rivers of Blood Katana, are now absolutely amazing. There's been a lot of builds that I just kind of avoid making because Arcane was not scaling properly. Now, a lot of these builds like Vampire and Rivers of Blood and plenty of others now are incredibly powerful in the game. Now, in situations where the player cannot obtain more than 2 talisman pouches, added talisman pouch to Twin Maiden Husk's shop lineup. They've also fixed a bug that prevented the user from warping to Sites of Grace from the map at the end of the game. They also fixed the player from moving to the next area after the battle with the Fire Giant, so that was having issues where you actually wouldn't be moved. And surprisingly, they did not fix the glitch where you can easily kill the Fire Giant, which is pretty cool, because if you haven't checked that out and you've been struggling, make sure to check out that video. They also fixed a bug which causes some weapons to have incorrect scaling after strengthening, and a bug that caused some weapons not to use stat scaling. So in many instances here, a lot of weapons have gotten buffs. They've also fixed hangups in certain occasions, and a bug which incorrectly displays multiplayer area boundary when playing online. This one's a bit of a sad one because I loved it. They fixed the Erdtree Great Shield weapon skill. Now you have to actually absorb an attack to activate it, and you can no longer light yourself on fire and just blast things away. I quite enjoyed that, but it's unfortunate that it doesn't work. Now, they also fixed a bug which caused Fire's Deadly Sin incantation to have a different effect, but you can still light yourself on fire and activate like a blood thing to be able to cause fire and blood damage to enemies around you, which is pretty interesting. Next, we've got a pretty massive nerf, which we all knew was going to be coming, where they nerfed the Ash of War, Determination, and Royal Knight's Resolve, where the damage buff will also apply to other weapons without that skill. So that's a pretty massive nerf to a lot of things, but it was a glitch, and we knew it was coming. They also adjusted the visual effect of Unseen Form spell, and deleted the Ragged Armor set from the game, which was mistakenly obtainable in a previous patch. They also fixed a bug that causes some hostile NPCs to drop fur-calling finger remedies, and also a bug that causes incorrect sound effects to play in some situations. Also, more visual and animation changes have been made, and pretty much that's about it for the bug fixes. They did also fix a bug that caused incorrect stat parameters for some armor, text fixes, and other performance improvements across the board. Now for the list of balance changes. They increased the drop rate of smithing stones for some enemies, which is pretty nice. They also added smithing stones to some early game shops lineups, which I just witnessed today, and increased shield's effectiveness, which is pretty nice. They also increased the damage for all offensive cracked pot items. and the damage for following items of the Spark Aromatic and Poison Spray Mist. They also increased the effect duration for the following items: Uplifting Aromatic and the Iron Jar Aromatic, and then increased HP healing for Torrent when using the following items of the Roa Raisin, Sweet Raisin, and Frozen Raisin. They reduced the FP consumption and increased the damage of the following sorceries: Glintstone Comet Shard, Comet, and Night Comet. So sorcerers actually got a lot of buffs in this game, while sorcerers and arcane users got a lot of buffs in this update. They increased the damage of the following sorceries: Gravity Well, Collapsing Star, and Crystal Barrage, and decreased the FP consumption of the following sorceries: Star Shower, Rock Blaster, Gavel of Hema, Founding Rain of Stars, Stars of Ruin, Great Blade Phalanx, Magic Downpour, Loretta's Great Bow, Loretta's Mastery, Carrion Greatsword, Carrion Piercer, and Shard Spiral. They also raised the projectile speed and range of the Great Glintstone Shard. So lots of pretty amazing buffs for sorcerers here. They decreased the Ash of War Hoarfrost Stomp damage and increased the cast time. This one was pretty powerful in the late game, and it is still, honestly, really, really good. They increased the Ash of War's Bloody Slash self-inflict damage, while also slightly lowering the damage and increasing the cast time. So they actually made it cause like double the amount of damage to yourself, while also lowering the amount of damage by like 10 or 20% on the inflicting blow. So a pretty big nerf to my favorite Ash of War in the game. They also decreased weapon skill Sword of Night and Flames damage. This one hits really close to home because this was my favorite weapon in the game. The thing they nerfed the most is the attack that shoots out the beam. They've made it much shorter range and also reduced the damage by almost 30%. So it's still pretty good, but not nearly as good as it was before because you have to be a lot closer to your target for it to hit, and the damage has been reduced. On the other hand, they left the flame art relatively intact. The range was already pretty low, and they reduced the damage by about 8%. They also increased the FP consumption and lower duration of Ash of War Barricade Shield, and changed the FP consumption timing of Ash of War Prelates Charged. They also decreased the damage of Spirit Summoned when using the item Mimic's Tear's Ash, and changed the Spirit's behavior pattern. So basically a nerf to Mimic's Tear Ash, which is alright. It was one of my favorite summons, but there are other really good ones in the game as well. And other enemy and weapon balance changes. So this was definitely a big boost for sorcerers and arcane users, and a nerf to pretty much all the things that were broken in the game, but there are still plenty of things that are overpowered and broken. But yeah, I do hope you all enjoyed the video. Let me know what you think of the nerfs and buffs in the comments below, and I'll see you all in the next one.